And I said, no, I told you absolutely everything. And he said, no, you were very, he said, you were very good. You were very frank. You were very, very direct with everything you said, and we appreciate that. So I said, good. And he said, but there is a bit more, and we're giving you an opportunity to tell us. So I said, I have told you absolutely everything. He said, no, there's a little bit more. You have an opportunity now to tell us what it is. Yeah. Now, obviously, I have been in this situation once before, but with 2 other police officers who were fine, and they just let me speak. Obviously, I've seen Cagney and Lacey and Magnum PI and all these TV programs. Yeah. So I said, very naively, I mean, it's farcical now, I mean, it's funny now, at the time it wasn't. Yeah. So I said to the officers, are you saying to me that you've got some more evidence on something, and perhaps if I admit to it now, you'll be more lenient with me? Because that's what I thought they were saying. And he said, no. I went, okay, well, then I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. So he said to me, we've got all the forensics back on your computer. Do you want to tell us why we've got a photograph of you taking cocaine? So I've gone, whoa, 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 whoa. I have never even seen cocaine. I've never, ever seen it. So there's no disputes here. There's no issue. I've never seen it. So there's no way that I would be involved in anything like that. He said, we have a photograph. We found it on your computer. Do you want to explain why the forensics team found that on your computer? And I've gone, whoa.
And wasn't this something from a party, and it wasn't even you, or was it something?
Well, what it was, first of all, the interview, firstly, the police have to caution you, so it wasn't recorded. The whole thing was just a complete farce. In the end, I mean, he got very aggressive. He was effing and blinding. He used the C word.
And we'll find out exactly where that photo. Welcome back to On the Edge. I'm Alex G, and I'm here with my guest Ian Puddick. Now, we're getting you to text in on 86686. Don't forget to include the word EDGE at the start of your message and tell us what you want to tell us. Over to Melissa now, who's got a little bit of a summary of what we've had so far.
Well, so far we've got Smithy and the Burge asking you to tell it like it is, Alex.
Oh, thank you.
Another comment is 1 million of our money wasted on a plumber who told the truth. You couldn't make it up. And somebody else has said, I imagine that this involves more than just the police.
Well, there we go, Ian. I think we'll touch on that a little bit later. So we got up to the point where there's an incriminating photo being found by the police on your PC.
Absolutely.
If you excuse the expression PC in relation to the police, but there we go. And it's this that they're trying to incriminate you with. So what's the origins of this photo?
Well, yeah, I'm absolutely disputing that this photo could ever exist, because I've never seen cocaine. And I actually preface that and say, actually, I tell a lie, and that's what I say to them, I've seen it once on telly. And I guess when you see it on TV, it's not real. So, you know, that could never have happened. It's never happened. And if there is this photograph, and I'd like to see this photograph, it's going to be faked, photoshopped. It just cannot exist. Right. There's not going to be an excuse.
So you've never actually seen it?
No, no, absolutely not.
Far be it from them to actually show you the evidence.
They didn't have it. They didn't have it.
So where do we go from here? You've been cornered.
Policeman goes nuts and starts effing and blinding, standing over me, just calling me all sorts of names. It's just, I feel very, very intimidating. And I said, at this point, I'd like to have my lawyer. Can I call a lawyer, please? And he said, the other police officer said, it's just an informal interview. And I said, I've just been called an effing so-and-so. I said, it doesn't feel very informal to me.
Right.
So anyway, the senior officer got up and walked out, sat outside, was calming down, he came back in, and then he said to me, did you do cocaine at uni? And I said, I've never been to university. I've been to a university, but I never studied or went to a university. So I said, I'd like to see this photograph. I want to see this photograph. And he said, well, we haven't got it. I said, well, I'm happy to wait. I'd like to see this photograph. And then he says, well, we did find a photograph. And then he describes this sort of photograph. Right. You just couldn't make this up. And what he sort of described was true. What the forensics found on my computer was a PowerPoint presentation called A Life of Riley. Right. It was my best man speech shown at a wedding to sort of 150, 250 guests. And rather than stand up and give the groom a really tough time, which is what generally you do as a best man, I did it as a PowerPoint presentation. And Life of Riley, his name's Andrew Riley, sorry Andrew. And we literally had the stages of his life, and the pictures were all photoshopped. We went through the stage of him being hanging out in certain places with lots of leather on, if I may say that. Very, very.
And we're actually saying that these are mock-ups. This
Completely.
isn't actually your friend.
No. Well, no. His pictures on them, but we've just leather-studded collars, lots of gold, bags of money, drugs, all sorts of stuff. And literally, and I'd stand up at the wedding and say to his wife, "Did you know that he went through this phase? Did you know he went through that phase?" And obviously, it got a laugh.
Yeah.
And I said to them, those images were shown in a public place at a wedding to 200 guests for fun. Yeah. For fun, clearly in the context of fun, and you're trying to. I'm not even in the pictures.
This is your friend who's been mocked up on Photoshop.
Completely. But they tried to force me. Yeah. They tried to bully me by swearing, by threats, into a confession. I mean, it's just appalling. Absolutely appalling. I mean, you read stories in the papers about police abuse. People have nervous breakdowns and can't cope, and you just don't think these things go on. You just don't think these things go on. So that interview ends. We walk out through the station. As we're walking through one of the corridors, he stops me again and stands very, very close to me, forces me back to the wall, and says another thing. He said, "Do you know how serious perverting the course of justice is? Do you realise how effing serious that is?" So I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about." Yeah. He said, "We found some information on a magistrate's court on your computer. I want to know the magistrates you're colluding with." And I said, "I'm not colluding with any magistrates." He said, "Why did we find that information on your computer?" And they did actually find some information that would have been there. And I say this considering the context of why I'm here and all this nonsense that I'm involved in. Yeah. I had actually applied, started the process of becoming a magistrate. Obviously, that was a short-lived career.
Well, yes. Not somewhere you'd want to go now.
No, it's a very, very short-lived career. But from finding some information about the process of applying to become a magistrate, that was turned into a charge of, or a threat of a charge, I should say, because I've never charged.
No, sure.
The threat of perverting the course of justice. And as you said, do you effing know how serious that is? I didn't know how serious it is, but with hindsight, it's incredibly serious. And they just tried anything because the whole thing was just a joke. And obviously at that point, I didn't know that it was a major operation. They'd done all sorts of things. If they could get something more substantial out of it, this was the way of trying to bully it out of me. And, you know, I'm not above the law. I told the absolute truth. It was inappropriate for me to have made those calls. There's no dispute about that. Completely admitted that. But these guys effectively are above the law. And it's the lack of integrity. And who do they think they are? Who do they think they are?
It's a crazy situation. So moving the story along, they've tried to frame you up with from material found on your computers.
Sure.
So I assume you got out of jail, as it were.
Yeah.
Then where do we go with the story from that point?
We then get to disclosure, and the CPS send through all the disclosure, and there's stuff there that I had absolutely nothing to do. I mean, there's paperwork and inference to the Welsh Rifle Association. Now, they don't say this, but the implication by the narrative or the story that the context they've created, like I was trying to second weapons, and they don't say that directly, but there's an inference.
That major arms supply of a Welsh Rifle Association.
Osama bin Puddick.
Yes.
And there was lots and lots of things in there that were completely wrong. I mean, one of his neighbours, this chap's neighbours, everybody in the case initially wasn't interviewed by the police, they were interviewed by Kroll, so that they could obviously create the story that they needed to feed to the police, because the first police force had said it was a civil matter and they didn't want to get involved. So they needed to criminalise it. And
So Kroll got involved. Now I've got some bits and pieces on Kroll, because people will be saying, well, who are Kroll, and what might be their role in all this? And literally, this is extracted from the internet, so we'll see where we're at on this. From the 9/11 encyclopedia, would you believe, Kroll was notorious during the 1980s as being the CIA of Wall Street due to the prevalence of former CIA, FBI, Scotland Yard, British Secret Service, and British Special Air Service men Kroll employed for corporate espionage and takeover bids, as well as for destabilisation of foreign nations. Now, Wikipedia notes that on September the 11th, 2001,